Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you for joining us for what we promise will be an empowering, educational, and rewarding financial seminar. The theme for this evening's forum is Unlock Your Potential and Enhance Your Wealth, powered by JN Fund Managers and JN Bank. I am your moderator, Cortia Bingham Mackenzie. I am a seasoned entrepreneur, a multi-potentialite, a child of the King, and I am honored to be a part of this forum this evening. It would be remiss of me not to mention how grateful I am for this opportunity. Thank you, JN Fund Managers and JN Bank. Before we start officially, let's mention some special people in our midst. One, our valued members and customers of the JN Group, Mr. Alan Lewis, the Managing Director of JN Fund Managers, Mr. Curtis Martin, the Managing Director, JN Bank. Our guest this evening, Mr. Ryan Parts, Chief of Business Banking at JN Bank, and Mr. Dylan Koch, Deputy General Manager at JN Fund Managers, and our JN Group members of staff. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. Now, before we begin, it's the tradition of the JN Group to start all proceedings by inviting God's presence in the space. I now invite Tamara Honeygun, Financial Advisor of JN Fund Managers, to ask the Lord's blessings on this forum this evening. Tamara?
Thank you, Cortia. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we just want to thank you that we're able to gather today. God, we just want to thank you for the JN family. Thank you for the creative minds that brought together this session today. Lord, the world as we know it has taken on a new dimension. But God, as we navigate through this season, we thank you for your support. We thank you for providing help, God. And as we have this conversation today, God, I pray you may just guard our hearts and our minds. I know many may be feeling helpless at this moment, God, or anxious, not knowing what the future looks like. But God, we thank you that we can put our trust in you. Lord, just help that this conversation will be helpful to someone today. Continue to protect us, continue to provide and be with us. Bless our families, bless our friends. Thank you for everything, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Honeygun. Thank you for that prayer. Again, thank you all for joining us this evening. Our hope is that you're all keeping well and safe as we continue to navigate the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. If it's one thing we can all agree on, ladies and gentlemen, is that the pandemic has underscored how important it is to plan for unexpected events. And most important, for the purpose of this forum, it's critical that we all take our financial education and work to achieve financial freedom seriously. Economic empowerment for all Jamaicans is a key area for the focus of the Jamaica National Group. This evening, JN Fund Managers and JN Bank will seek to unlock your potential and enhance your wealth. With this forum, the JN Group is doing something that will certainly help its members and clients like you and me to achieve our goals and most effectively plan for the future. Before we introduce our guest, however, I'm pleased to introduce one of our hosts, the Managing Director of JN Fund Managers, Mr. Alan Lewis, who will officially welcome you.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Cortia, and welcome to all our guests. But first of all, I would like to wish you and all the women a very happy International Women's Month.
Thank you so much.
And I do so on behalf of my colleague Curtis Martin, the Managing Director, and my colleague at JN Bank, and my colleagues Dylan and Ryan, who are also going to be featured, and of course, Tamara, who just did that wonderful prayer and evoke the Lord's presence for us.
Thank you.
On International Women's Day, I wished my wife, you know, a happy occasion and told her that, you know, without women, there would be no life. And my wife responded, yes, Alan, and without men, there would be no life either. And I think that metaphor of the symbiosis and the necessity of both man and woman for existence on this earth is similar to how we see ourselves at the JN Group, where we are here to serve our community, to serve our fellow citizens of Jamaica, including our wonderful clients who are here with us today and potential clients who are here with us this afternoon. It is our thesis that this seminar today, or this occasion, this function, where we're going to try and help our members to unlock their potential. If they do that, that will lead them to enhancing their wealth. So I hope that our listeners or the audience will enjoy and benefit from the words of wisdom that they will receive from Ryan and Dylan, and look forward to the question and answer period that will follow their presentations. And at this point in time, it only remains for me to once again thank everybody for participating, for taking the time to share with us this afternoon. And as I said, I do so on behalf of my colleagues, and especially Mr. Curtis Martin. Thank you very much, everybody, and I hope you enjoy today's proceedings and look forward to your participation and eventually your feedback on what you think of how we did. Thank you, and over to you, Cortia.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lewis. Thank you for that warm welcome. Following what Mr. Lewis just highlighted, we all know that these are uncertain times, and for investors and business owners, the past year has been especially challenging to navigate. So we'll now dive into our scintillating discussions with the financial pundits from JN Fund Manager and JN Bank. If you're just joining us, you are live on JN Fund Managers and JN Bank Financial Seminar themed Unlock Your Potential and Enhance Your Wealth. Our main presenters this evening will consider and discuss the options available to us to prepare for and survive the unexpected events, as well as share some advice to guide us through these horrible, well, challenging times. Let's use challenging times. With us this evening is Mr. Ryan Parks, Chief of Business Banking at JN Bank, and Mr. Dylan Coe, the Deputy General Manager for Investment Banking at JN Fund Managers. Both gentlemen are experts in their fields and highly knowledgeable. Mr. Parks is an experienced financier with a career that has spanned over several years in highly regarded financial institutions in Jamaica. He currently has responsibility for developing and maintaining a healthy portfolio of business loans and corporate deposits at JN Bank. Mr. Coke is an accomplished professional with many years of experience in the origination and execution of a range of capital markets transactions. At JN Fund Managers, he has oversight for capital markets, corporate finance advisory, sales and trading, as well as wealth management. I invite you to be prepared to take notes of significant points which we will be sharing from these two experienced gentlemen. We also implore you to send us your questions in the chat and on social media, and at the end, we'll do our best to address most, if not all, of your questions. So now, gentlemen, Mr. Parks and Dylan, Mr. Coe. We outlined during the introduction, the pandemic has thrown many investors and business owners a curveball. And it's exactly a year since Jamaica has had its first case of COVID-19. What's your assessment of the past year? One, the main impact, as well as some of the challenges that investors and business owners are facing right now. We'll start with Dylan.
Sure, thanks for that, Courtia. I don't think it's any secret that past year has been an extremely challenging one in a number of ways. From a macroeconomic perspective, obviously, we would have seen a sharp contraction in the economy. Industries such as hospitality and entertainment would have been particularly hard hit. Interestingly enough, other industries have suffered less, and there are companies who have done well throughout this time and surprised many of us. From a markets perspective, obviously, you would also have seen where asset prices across the board took a hit initially and then recovered some ground towards the end of last year. You would have seen our local stock market decline very sharply and then start to regain some momentum towards the end of the year. In terms of the investment banking business, which is where I operate, you would have seen deal flow slow down sharply for a period during last year. But if you follow the newspapers, you would have seen towards the end of the year where there were several major offers in the market, both debt and equity. And it was very clear that the markets are open for business and are getting back to where they were. So it's been a difficult period. I think what we're seeing is the beginning of the recovery. For business owners, it's been an extremely trying time. I think it's tested everybody's determination and creativity and ability to innovate and ability to pivot.
Yes.
Same thing for investors. It's been extremely difficult, and they've taken a beating in some way, but that's the nature of the markets. There will be ups and downs, and the key thing to do is to stay focused, stay close to your advisors, and weather the storm.
Thank you so much for that, Dylan. Let's hear from Ryan. What's your feedback? What's your take on the assessment of the past year, the main impact, and just share with us some of the challenges that investors and business owners are facing right now?
Well, thank you, Courtney. I want to also take this opportunity to welcome all our guests that are joining on this platform, as well as those who are streaming live on other social media platforms. No doubt, Courtney, the pandemic has had a catastrophic impact on the local economy. In fact, it is pretty much safe to say that it has been one of the most impactful health crises in over 100 years. Now, just to share with you a little statistics before I go to the question in a more direct way. The PIOJ, as you would have heard, is reporting that the Jamaican economy is expected to contract 10.2% for the January to December 2020 period. Those are numbers that we have not seen or heard of in decades. In fact, there's no data to suggest that we have contracted at these levels prior to now. For the fiscal year 2020 to 2021, GDP is predicted to decline between 10.5% to 12.5%. And you would have seen how the tourism sector has been decimated with a decline of over 70%. In fact, the 2021 January numbers are out, and in January alone, tourist arrivals is down 82% compared to January 2020. We have seen also a spike in the unemployment rate from roughly 7% to 10.7%. And when you look further afield, one of our main trading partners, the United States, for example, in the second quarter, posted a historic decline in GDP of some 31%. And we see a gradual recovery there in the third quarter with growth of roughly 33%. Now, the main challenge to my mind that face a number of businesses here in Jamaica is one, the uncertainty that is associated with the pandemic. The truth is nobody has a crystal ball as to when it will end, and because of that, a lot of businesses are pretty much uncertain. The other impact it has had, certainly, is the negative effects the pandemic has had on a lot of cash flows for several businesses. So again, that has to be looked at in context, because you would have seen a number of companies that have posted historic revenues and profits. So there are those that would have benefited from the pandemic to some extent, because if they're exposed to a sector that predominantly is in food and so on, there would have been increased demand from more persons working from home. But notwithstanding that, we believe that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We believe that once the government continues to administer the vaccine, I was quite encouraged to see yesterday that the program has started here in Jamaica, and certainly overseas, you would see where the rise in cases and new cases are falling quite precipitously. And so with that, we believe that the outlook is quite positive. And in fact, a lot of businesses can now take advantage of growing opportunities. The last point I want to mention is, of course, the budget, which was just concluded by the Honorable Minister of Finance. It includes a Serve Jamaica program, which involves a lot of stimulus packages, if you may, to support a lot of small businesses locally. And as we go through today, we can delve into those specific packages at a later date. Finally, the Congress in the United States, you would have seen, has actually passed a very record stimulus package of $1.9 trillion. And with that disseminating in the economy and trickling down, dependent countries such as ours should benefit. So the truth is, I think we have pretty much past the worst, even though the pandemic is still likely to be here, and businesses can now seize opportunities, reposition themselves to grow going forward.
Thank you so much for that, Ryan. Just listening to you, I'm sure a lot of business owners like myself feel very hopeful, and we like the tone that you started the discussions on. With that in mind, you framed the context for us, both yourself and Dylan. Could you also give us some advice about what we should be doing as investors and business owners at this point in order to re-emerge, get back some life and passion in our business, or to also cauterize the continued effects of the pandemic? What should we be doing now? Let's start with Dylan.
Sure, thanks for that, Courtio. I think the best advice we can give business owners and investors is to stay informed and stay nimble. If there's anyone out there who is telling you that they know exactly how this thing is going to unfold and exactly where we're going to be in 6 months, that person should be ignored. None of us knows definitively exactly how this pandemic will unfold and the effect it will continue to have on the economy and the markets and businesses generally. The key thing is to stay informed, as I mentioned, stay close to your broker, stay close to your banker. A big part of what we do is not just to structure deals and make loans, but also to provide advisory services. So we're also here to help you figure out how to get through difficult times like these. So stay informed, stay nimble, and stay close to your advisors.
If I could just delve a little bit, Dylan, when you say stay nimble, can you just expound a little bit on that, just maybe a second or two?
Sure. So I think the point of staying nimble is being ready to make changes in your business or your investments as the need arises. Obviously, you want to have an informed view. You want to have a very structured long-term plan. But as I mentioned, um, things unfold from day to day. And it makes sense, particularly as a business owner, to be prepared to make changes. If you are too rigid and too inflexible, you may find that there are changes which occur, which you're not ready for and which have a devastating impact on your business. So flexibility, creativity, and staying informed, I think, are all key.
Thank you so much, Dylan. Well said. Ryan, care to share with us what advice would you be giving to investors, business owners right now for to ensure that we're thriving in the pandemic, or we're ensuring that our business are staying alive during this challenging time?
Okay, so thanks for that. So separate and apart from positioning the businesses to take advantages of opportunities to come, given the level of uncertainty which is associated with the pandemic, one of the things we urge businesses to do at this time is to preserve liquidity and cash flows as best as possible. Because you know you want to ride out this particular pandemic, and so it is important to survive. And so in surviving, you may want to look at whether there are certain major capital expansion programs you may want to delay or shift down the road or in the future until there is a clearer indication as to when we are likely to recover. The other thing that I think a lot of businesses would look at is how to remove as best as possible certain cost structures within the business. You want to minimize as best as possible your costs, given the fact that revenues in a lot of cases would have been impacted. And finally, as I said, to the extent that a lot of businesses can pivot to other areas that may be in demand at this point in time, is something that I strongly encourage. There's, for example, a customer of ours that is into the manufacturing business, but they also manufacture toilet papers and hand towels and so on. And what we recognize, because a lot of persons are now working remotely from home, there is a significant surge in demand for those products. And what the business was able to do was to quickly align its model to be able to focus on those products that are in demand. So to the extent that the business is agile enough to be able to adjust and to pivot, this is something that we strongly advise. The truth is, in every crisis and every challenge, there's an opportunity. And I believe it or not, there are a lot of businesses that have come on the scene or have been incorporated or established because of opportunities created by this pandemic.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And the operative word that you mentioned there for me is opportunity. So can you share with us some of the strategies or some of the things that JN has employed to assist people at this time to see the opportunities, to delve into the opportunities, to take the opportunities and improve their businesses or to survive?
Well, certainly. So we run a very full corporate/business banking service here at JN Bank. And at this particular point in time, we are very close to our customers. There are a number of our clients that have been impacted adversely by the pandemic. and we ensure that we remain close in supporting them with moratoriums, for example, on their loan facilities, and also where possible, loan restructuring activities. But beyond that, as I mentioned to you before, there are some of our clients that have seen opportunities and may also require working capital support. And we are more than willing to support those businesses to provide additional capital to go after those opportunities. I'm pleased to say, for example, we recently launched our business credit card, which offers the opportunity for over 50 days interest-free. So in a particular time like this where you need to manage in a more structured way the costs within the business, you can consider accessing a credit card facility that provides working capital to the business. And depending on how you use it, it could be a kind of loan facility at 0% interest. Once you're able to repay within that 51-day period. So these are some tangible ways in which we support a lot of businesses that do require support at this time, and also to position them for future growth.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Dillon, are there any strategies your section or your department have employed to assist people during this time?
Sure, Cartia. So one of the first things we did at the onset of the pandemic was to just take a minute to reach out to our clients. Obviously, we are busy all day, every day, selling financial products and services, but we thought it would be very useful and it would be important to just stop for a minute and spend some time reaching out and understanding how the pandemic has been affecting our clientele. So that was one of the first things we did. We also realized that in a time like this, what clients would need is the ability to do transactions efficiently and effectively. Obviously, a lot of people would have been drawing down on their investments, which as investment managers, we're not thrilled about, but it's part and parcel of what's happening now. So we made particular efforts to make sure that people would be able to do transactions quickly and efficiently. We had in place an ongoing digitization program, which we've fast forwarded and sped up. And a big part of that is allowing customers to be able to open accounts online. At this point, the majority of the process can be done online. We've created a facility, for example, where you can make your appointment with your advisor online, meet with them online, and have your transactions done in that way. So we realized that given the particular circumstances of the pandemic, efficiency and ease of doing business would be key to our customers. And that's been a main focus for us.
Excellent. Thank you, Dillon. We're going to look at now, beyond seeking out the assistance of your banker, Ryan, what else should businesses be doing? Because simply keeping their operations going, we can imagine, has to be vital for the businesses now. So what else should businesses be considering or doing to stay afloat in this economy, Ryan?
Well, that's a very important question. One of the first things I would say is stay close to your bankers. Let your banker know what the situation is. Be open and upfront, and wherein the bank can provide support. The banks will lend that support. One of the other things I believe that is very important is for the business to look at its model to see how best there can be shifts in the model. As I mentioned before, where the businesses need to pivot, for example, that's an opportunity for them to definitely shift the business model. I know, for example, in the entertainment industry, a lot of those larger entertainment management companies would have been hard hit, certainly because of the mitigating measures the government would have implemented to cauterize the impact of COVID-19. And so with that, there's alternatively an opportunity to grow the business from the perspective of digital type streaming and digital media display. We would have seen the whole concept now of media, digital type events being hosted, and certainly this is an area that there's a significant demand. So those companies can reposition. One of the other things I would point out is restructure your credit facilities as best as possible. And it could also mean restructure repayment terms with some of your suppliers. So you want to call your suppliers in at this point in time and to be able to explain and to renegotiate various supplier terms. So those are some key points I believe a lot of businesses can consider at this time.
And you mentioned something about suppliers, and it just calls to mind how important relationships are, so you can have these conversations with people who you normally engage in business with. Again, Ryan, I want to ask you, would you advise right now for business owners to access capital right now in the pandemic? Is it advisable?
Well, it's a very interesting question. Again, it depends on the industry within which you operate. So it's not a simple yes or no response. Once the business proposition comes to us, is something that we as experts here at the bank will assess and to provide that kind of guidance. Now, if you look at tourism, for example, that sector continues to reel from the impact. And I was quite pleased recently to have heard the Minister of Tourism indicate that the rebound should start sometime June and later on as we move into the winter tourist season. Because naturally, once we reach a stage of herd immunity, and a lot of persons in the United States, Canada and the UK, which is the major source of our tourism product. Once those persons are vaccinated, I believe they would start to travel. So if a particular business comes with a plan to be able to operate in the tourism sector, and that plan is something that they're looking to do now, one of the advice we would perhaps give is to delay those plans until at least we can see the tangible recovery. Notwithstanding that, if you also look at the Planning Institute latest results, the construction sector seems to have insulated itself to some extent from the impact of the pandemic. And any of you would travel across Kingston and St. Andrew, and you would see the massive level of construction that is taking place. And so that's a sector that we continue to lend and support, and also some in manufacturing. So the truth is, it depends on the industry that you're operating within. One thing I can indicate to you is that JN Bank stands ready to support any business, and support doesn't necessarily mean financing as at this point, but to hold their hands, to walk with them, and to navigate with them until there's recovery. At that point, we would be able to lend support.
Thank you so much, Ryan. You've elaborated so well on just the power and the propensity and the structure of the JN Bank to really assist, uplift, empower business owners. So now we're going to bring your attention to a video that gives you more information on JN Bank's positioning and role in keeping you afloat, empowering you throughout this pandemic.
It's not just business as usual when you activate your Visa Infinite Business Card from JN Bank. It's the card you need whether you're putting down roots or planning your next big move. Plus, free payroll services, free JAA membership, and quick loan advance services. Go about your business knowing that you have the support you need. And a card that's as forward-thinking as your business. Get a Visa Infinite Business Credit Card from JN Bank. We'll help you find a way.
Bills to pay and funds to transfer? No problem. I do it all on my time with JN Bank Live Online Banking. It's my simple and secure online banking.
Phone credit need a top-up?
We're sorry.
No problem. I do it with JN Bank Live Online Banking. It's my quick and easy experience with just a few clicks.
JN Bank Live, online banking that goes where you go. 24-hour banking, faster, easier experience. Sign up today. Visit jnbank.com. JN Bank will help you find a way.
It's not just business.
It's not just business as usual. Thank you for that, JN Bank. We're going to focus and delve a little bit more into JN Fund Managers. Dylan, so we'll field these next few questions to you. What about positioning my small business to one day do an initial public offering? Is it a good time to do this? And how can a business prepare for this next step?
Sure. As an investment banker, I'm always going to tell you it's a good time to think
Yes.
about an IPO and positioning for an IPO.
Yes.
Is it a good time now? I can tell you the markets are open. If you've been watching the business news, you would see that there's been lots of activity, especially towards the end of last year. Lots of APOs, large debt offers. So the markets are open and investors are looking for good investments.
Yes.
So yes, it's something worth thinking about. How would you go about prepping your business for an IPO down the line? Two things I would suggest you do. One is to speak with an investment banker. And as I'd mentioned earlier, part of what we do is to give advice. So we're not always immediately looking to structure a deal. We're very happy to work with customers towards a deal sometime in the future. And we're very happy to sit down with you, take a look at your business and give you some idea of how to position to do that transaction down the line. For someone specifically looking to do an IPO in a year, 2 years time, 5 years time, whatever it is, I think the key piece of advice I would give you is to take a look at your business from the perspective of an investor. Step outside your role as managing director or CEO or whatever it is and say to yourself, is this a business I would invest in if somebody brought it to me just one day out of the blue?
Mm-hmm.
And once you start to do that process, a lot of things will become clearer to you. So for example, how are you going to evaluate this business if you don't have accurate and detailed information as an investor? So you need to make sure to start with that the business has up-to-date financial statements. That's the only way somebody's going to be able to assess the business in a really structured and detailed way. If you look at the business from the perspective of an investor, you're going to ask yourself, is there good management in place? Is there good corporate governance? Is there a board in place? Is the business transparent? You're going to ask yourself, as an investor in the business, has the business performed well in the recent past? And even more importantly, is it likely to perform well going into the future? Does it have a powerful story to sell? Is there some new product or new opportunity that the business is going to take advantage of? Because as an investor, what you're looking for is returns down the road. So the first thing I would suggest you do is to take a look at the business from the perspective of an investor and sit down with your investment banker to start to put in place the very specific things you would need to do in order to satisfy the rules for listing on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Thank you so much, Dylan. And it's so poignant that you mentioned that, because so many businesses in Jamaica operate very informal business structures. So it's so key, as you mentioned, to ensure that the structure, corporate governance is there. And as you mentioned before, JN Fund Managers is not just about curating deals or getting the actual investments, but it's also about giving the advice. So I implore you, go to JN Fund Managers, get the advice, structure your business, prepare your business for IPOs. All right. Secondly, Dylan, there are currently some big offers in the markets: APOs, IPOs, preference shares, etc. Sorry. How does one participate, and is it a good time to participate?
In terms of how one participates, that's not difficult. If you don't already have an equity account with a broker, you need to select a broker. I would suggest you select JN Fund Managers. Reach out to JN Fund Managers, which, as I mentioned, you can do online. You can set up an appointment online with an advisor and have a discussion with them, and they will guide you through the process of setting up an account. In terms of investing in a specific offer, I would recommend that you reach out to your advisor, get some advice from our very capable research team, give some thought to what your risk parameters are, and then make a decision about whether you want to invest or not. And then the actual process of investing depends on how the offer has been structured. It may involve you filling up physical application forms, but more and more these days, there are online portals which allow you to invest in the offer, and your broker will guide you through that process.
Thank you, Dylan. Also, just a question that popped in my mind just now. Do you need a lot of money to invest, would you say? Because I'm sure, many people are concerned, do we have the money now? Is it like, just give us an idea. Do you think it's a lot for people to look at that now, or is it manageable, or you can start small and then increase as you go along?
So no, you don't need a lot to invest. Okay. And investing is the way to ensure that you have a lot to invest later on.
Yes.
And the way most, if we're talking about IPOs or APOs, for example, typically they're structured so that the minimum amounts are pretty low and very accessible for even small investors. If you're looking to invest in a more structured way with a small amount of money, JN Fund Managers has a full suite of mutual funds with relatively low minimum investment amounts, and you can invest in the broad spectrum of asset classes through those mutual funds.
Thank you so much, Dylan. And let's talk about the people who are afraid. So many people are risk averse, and especially now when there are frightening economic effects from the pandemic. Some people have decided to stay on the sidelines. Is this a good strategy? Should we be staying on the sidelines, or should we be jumping off, taking the dive?
So I would say a desire to stay on the sidelines is perfectly understandable, given the level of uncertainty in the markets. It's understandable for investors in particular who would have suffered losses over the course of last year. you couldn't be blamed for wanting to just kind of step back, maybe try and figure it out before you do anything else.
Yes.
But I can also tell you that seasoned investors will tell you that typically it's when there is uncertainty in the market that you find the most opportunities. And I could give you any number of quotes about investing when there's blood in the streets, or I think Warren Buffett says being greedy when others are fearful. My main advice would be not so much be greedy when others are fearful, but be informed when others are acting without information.
Yes.
So stay informed, stay close to your broker. There are many experienced institutional investors now who will tell you that what they're doing is staying fairly liquid and just taking advantage of opportunities as they present themselves.
Yes.
And the key thing in that is to bear in mind that they're still investing. They're being strategic and they're being careful and they're staying informed, but they're still investing.
Thank you, Dylan. And in the vein of our theme, enhancing our wealth, I want to enhance my wealth, Dylan. What are some
Me
of
too,
the
Carter, me too.
what are some of the investment options available to me and others through JN Fund Managers?
Sure. So JN Fund Managers has a broad range of investment products and services, including stocks, bonds, repurchase agreements. We're very proud of our suite of mutual funds, which have performed quite creditably over the last year. And I would recommend the mutual funds as something to consider, especially for smaller investors. They're managed by a team of experts, so you get the benefit of their expert input and guidance. Minimum investment amounts are relatively low, and buying into the funds and exiting if you need to is a fairly seamless process, which most of which can be done online. So as I said, a broad range of products. We have a particular emphasis on our mutual funds because particularly now we think that is a product that investors who are a little risk averse, a little gun shy,
Yes.
would find easy to access and easy to understand.
Thank you, Dylan, for that. I'm really interested in the mutual funds, Dylan, because I really want to enhance my wealth in 2021. Finally, Dylan, before we go to our testimonial, many of us save sporadically, intermittently, because as we get the money, we use it off, right? What's your advice on establishing a better habit of saving and investing?
So we would very strongly recommend that you make investing a habit, and even more than a habit, that you make it automatic. So it shouldn't be something that you kind of remember to do at the end of the month if you happen to have a few dollars left. What you want to be doing is paying yourself first, making your investments first. Sit down with your advisor, figure out how much you can afford to save. And when you figure that out, be a little bit more aggressive than that and save some more. And what we have at JN Fund Managers to assist in that process of making it more automatic is something we call the AIP, which is our automatic investment program, where you can arrange to make regular monthly investments in any of our mutual funds. So you take a few minutes to set it up, and then going forward each month, a transfer is made from your account, hopefully at JN Bank, directly to one of JN Fund Managers' mutual funds. And the investment is done regularly without you needing to have any more input going forward.
Good. That's excellent. That's excellent, Dylan. Thank you so much for that. You know, we definitely need to be doing that. If you're on this live, please contact JN Fund Managers. We want to build wealth in 2021, despite what is happening around us. And JN has the right structure. All the things that Dylan just mentioned, they are tools and instruments that will enhance your wealth. So please, all right, we'll share the information on how you can contact JN Fund Managers and JN Bank. So before we continue, we'll now watch a short testimonial with Mr. Raphael Sangster, who is an investor. He was able to make the right decisions and grow with the help from JN Fund Managers.
My experience with Jamaica National Fund Managers have been great. I've met many investment advisors who have made my retirement much better than I have expected. We're coming through many, many years of association, and today I am better off for having invested with Jamaica National Fund Managers. Through the many investments I've made with fund managers, I have been able to acquire and assisted my children in purchasing homes wherever they might be at this time. It has been a great challenge, but with the right advice given to you, you're able to make a return over time that will enable you to do the things that you want to do. As someone who has benefited from investing with fund managers, I would tell everyone, as young as you are or as early on the job that you are, you should start investing as little as you can, and it will build up over time. My experience.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sangster, for that testimonial. It's obvious that we can build wealth. Dylan, Ryan, how young or how soon, what age do you think one should start looking at investment options?
I don't think there's any age that's too early. I think it's a habit that parents should try and inculcate in their children as soon as they're able to wrap their minds around it. It's, you know, investing and saving and taking the time out to understand those things. It's one of the best things you can ever do. It's one of the best investments you can ever make in yourself. So it's never too early from my perspective.
Ryan?
Right, I agree with Dylan wholeheartedly. It's never too early, and it's against that background why JN, for example, has a program that we target the schools. We have a youth marketing department that targets persons at a very young age to develop a savings culture and a savings habit, because the earlier you're able to save, it's the better it is. And as you know, the wealth of a nation is determined by its ability to save.
Yes, absolutely. Can I just ask another one question, gentlemen?
Sure.
Is it fair to say, or what percentage? So say, for example, you're earning $10,000 per day. You know, we want to say per day, right? 10,000 US. I'm envisioning it. What percentage would you say, is there a breakout percentage for, savings, investment, your expenses, what should it be? Is there a formula?
Do you want to go ahead, Ryan?
Okay, so generally, there's a rule of thumb that
Right.
once you get paid, the idea is for you to pay yourself first, and at a minimum 20%, naturally dependent on the kind of obligations that you may have. It could naturally be beyond 20%, but the idea is a minimum of 20%, and also for you to pay yourself first. So once you are in a position where you get a salary, for example, in your case, $10,000,
Yes.
you may want to hive off
Yes.
20% and pay yourself first. And you
Yeah.
want to lock that up into an investment instrument. Now, across JN fund managers and the bank, there's a plethora of investment instruments. Naturally, for the bank, you can consider a term deposit, which we can fix for as long a period of 2 years. And in fact, we have other savings products that can be locked away for up to 5 years, some of which you benefit from tax-free advantages. On, for example, the fund manager side, I'm sure Dylan will speak to you about the equities market, the
Yes.
bonds market, and so on.
Dylan?
Sure. So, if your intention is to save and to do so in a way that has minimal risk, we have a number of products that would facilitate that. You might want to look at our money market fund, which is invested in short-term fixed income instruments. We also have repurchase agreements, which carry a fixed rate of interest, and you can buy for whatever period suits you, 30, 60, 90, 180 days. So there's flexibility along with security.
Thank you so much, Dylan. If it's one thing that I've deduced from this session, and I hope those watching would have gathered this as well, is that wealth is possible with the JN Group. Am I correct, gentlemen?
Absolutely.
It is very possible.
Yes, Corta, say it again.
Absolutely. And it starts by coming to JN.
Yes, you have to go into JN. And I love the culture of, really advising as opposed to just getting your money. I like that tone that I've been hearing throughout our conversation, gentlemen. So now we've had several questions coming in from our chat and from social media. I want to take a few, so I'm going to read them, and then, we can answer. Gentlemen, you can answer accordingly. I think this one is more of a JN fund manager's question. Christine Long says, what kinds of investment would you recommend with limited funds? Is investment in the foreign exchange viable at this time? So it's a two-part question, Dylan.
Sure.
So what kinds of investment would you recommend for someone with limited funds? And is investment in the foreign exchange viable at this time?
All right. So if we take the first part of the question, having limited funds.
I'm sorry, Dylan. That's not the complete question. Let me go again. She says, what kinds of investment would you recommend for a retiree with limited funds? And then the second part of the question is investment in the foreign exchange market viable at this time? That's from Christine Long. Thank you, Christine.
All right. So investments for someone who is retired or close to retirement will naturally be somewhat different for someone just starting out. You would expect someone at retirement age to want to take on minimal risk You would expect that they would want to keep their investments relatively liquid just in case there are any emergencies, whether health related or otherwise. And we have products at JN Fund Managers that assist you in doing just that. So we do have mutual funds again, which have low minimum investment amounts, which are easy to access and easy to exit if needs be, and which are invested in safe fixed income instruments. And for a retiree, I think that would be the best bet. Obviously, for somebody who is younger and earlier in their career and who has appetite for a little bit more risk, can look at something that gives them exposure to the equities market, for example. But for a retiree, you definitely want that liquidity and that security.
Thank you, Dylan. Another question directed, I think, to Ryan Jane Bank. Someone asked, Julia Brass asked, can you speak on business credit and the requirements for eligibility that JN offers? Okay, thanks for that question. So we have a suite of credit facilities that are available to business owners here at JN Bank. It ranges from a revolving line facility, line of credit, overdrafts, business credit card, commercial mortgage for the more longer term financing. And of course, we recently launched a foreign exchange hedging solution, which is particularly beneficial to a number of businesses who wish to mitigate against FX risks. So the idea is, once we would have been approached, we will analyze the unique case and we would prescribe the best financing option that would be able to tap into the need of the business. Now, generally, our requirements, because we have to conduct an analysis to recommend to our credit adjudicators, one has to at all times ensure that the business has the capacity to repay. There is banks on a whole suffer a lot of flack from not lending, but we have a fiduciary responsibility to our depositors, because we are not lending our own monies, but that of depositors. And so we have to analyze every business in their own unique cases. And the typical requirements would be to ensure that if you are a limited liability, that the business brings to us what we call the constitutive documents, the articles of incorporation, certificate of incorporation, and so on. But beyond that, on the financial side, it's important for us to know what kinds of cash flows the business generate. And for that, we generally look at the financials, audited financial statements, as well as management accounts. So we have been quite flexible with, especially our smaller businesses, small and medium businesses. Not often they're able to come to the table with audited financial statements. What we do at times is to look at their management accounts supported by bank statements. And we also encourage them to keep proper financial records. Beyond that, we would look at the projections. We want to see the kind of forward/forecast, financial forecast for the business, and to make a determination there. It's very important for us to know who are the key personnel that operate and manage the business. We want to ensure that those persons are endowed with the appropriate business acumen and the appropriate business skills to be able to effectively manage and run the business. So that's a snapshot as to what the requirements would be on the business side. And just a follow-up, Ryan, you mentioned business acumen. Does JN have seminars that would inform or educate business owners who possibly don't have the wherewithal to get the information or to furnish themselves with the proper way to run a business?
Absolutely. So we provide business advisory services, and beyond that, we from time to time meet with different cohorts of business, and we speak to them about the importance of proper financial management and how important it is to keep proper records. And very often we guide them as to how to achieve this and to also ensure that whoever is running the business is so equipped. Because you can have a very good business model and the management is weak and it affects the viability of the business.
Yes.
So it's a 360-degree kind of assessment that we look at when we make our submissions and recommendations for our business credit. And we make it very hassle-free.
Yes, yes. I always go into the JN institutions, the locations rather, and it seems as if, you know, it's a relaxed environment, stress-free. And
Absolutely.
I like that. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We have a few more questions, Ryan and Dylan, because you've both shared such valuable information. Everyone is excited to find out about the JN products. Let's do a follow-up with Julia. She says, what about if she's just starting what about if she's just starting a business and she needs funding? So new business and needs funding. What would be the process or procedure to assist someone like this?
Right, so that's a great question. It's very important for me to point out that JN Bank has been a signatory to the DBJ partnership arrangement, and we are in fact characterized as an AFI, an approved financial institution. And with this partnership with Development Bank of Jamaica, on-lend funds for startups. And so under that arrangement, startup businesses are able to get as much as 80% financing for their business proposition. So with various partnerships with the Development Bank and others, there is in fact a solution for those companies. It's again, we have to examine the business idea.
Yes.
And in fact, the kind of cash flows and the kind of marketing that would be supporting that business proposition. At some point in time, every business that thrives and is very successful today, at some point they are a startup, and they don't necessarily get to where they are today at one shot. And so at JN, we're particularly focused on our SMEs. In fact, the JN Small Business Loans, for example, has been in the market for over 20 years and has been supporting a plethora of small businesses. And a lot of them usually come to the table with a business idea. And we have seen where they have flourished and have transitioned from being a micro to a small and also to a medium business. So irrespective of your size or whether you're a startup, there's a solution here for you at JN.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Dylan, let's go back to JN Fund Managers. Evelyn Fraser says if she has an investment account, a fixed deposit, and she wants to change or move her money to another product, another form of investment with JN Fund Managers, is she able to do that?
Yes, absolutely. And I would just recommend that she reach out to us, whether through the website or on the phone, and she can connect with one of our investment advisors who can facilitate that. If she even wants to leave her contact information in the chat, we can have one of our advisors take her information and contact her shortly.
Thank you so much, Dylan. The final question before we do our wrap up, Garcia Swaby says, I'm a sole trader and would like to access credit from JN Bank. How easy is this for me? I think Ryan?
Sure. So we at the bank, our support is not just limited to limited liability companies. We also bank sole traders, because a lot of the businesses that drive economic activity are not just limited liability companies, but each cohort of business plays a role. And so indeed, there's a solution here for you. Again, we'll be more than delighted to look at your particular proposition and to be able to recommend one of our credit facilities here at JN Bank.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your questions. They were quite interesting and evoked a lot of conversation as well. We hope that you got the answers that you needed, but what is important is that JN is ready and willing. Just share your information and someone will contact you, one of their representatives. So any question that was not answered, once you put your information in the chat, you will be contacted. Gentlemen, lovely discussion. I can say personally, I feel empowered. I feel as if the industry of business is alive and kicking and it will be well. We only need to prepare. But before we wrap up, Ryan and Dylan, are there any last words from you? You can start, Ryan.
Right, sure. As I mentioned earlier, we are indeed in uncharted waters. It's a very challenging time, but I see myself as always as an eternal optimist, and in every crisis there's an opportunity. The truth is, even for us here at the bank, there's a host of lessons that we have learned from COVID-19. In fact, my managing director was recently saying that the way in which we're able to conduct meetings now via the Zoom platform is so efficient. And therefore, going forward, this is something that we may want to replicate. So there are a lot of lessons that we have learned from the pandemic that is likely to drive efficiencies going forward, even post-COVID, and there are a lot of lessons learned. So my advice to a lot of businesses is to take on board those lessons to drive greater efficiencies, take advantage, as Dylan said, be knowledgeable, keep your ears to the ground, try to retool, try to equip, because the economy, based on all the experts, and even when you listen to the Minister of Finance, is poised for recovery and recover soon. A lot depends on our ability to vaccinate the population. And so with that, JN Bank and JN Fund Managers remain open to support you as you take your business to the next level.
Thank you so much for that, Ryan. Dylan, before you give us our wrap up, we have a question in our Q&A from Roberta Ellis. The question says, are pension plans coupled with investment options, or would you need an investment plan solely for investing?
I would say you can do both, but remember our pension plan works is that if you're part of that plan, the funds that are taken from your salary every month would be invested by the pension fund manager, with the intention that on retirement you would get the benefit of those funds. So you can do both, but that's kind of part and parcel of what a pension plan is meant to do.
Thank you for that, Dylan. Do we have time for one more question? Yes? Okay, we have someone who just posed a question. All right, let's take the question. We just saw it. So this is from Mario Coleman. Gentlemen, you're doing so well that, you know, the questions keep coming in. And the culture of JN is that we cater to our clients, yes? So we're going to go to Mario Coleman before we leave. Good evening, team. Good evening, Mario. He says, I'm changing from an employee to a self-employed person. Should I borrow to invest in my business or use my portion of my pension? And if not, how do I invest my portion? And what is the best risk?
So I'm happy to let Ryan jump in on this one, but
Yes.
we would typically not recommend that you touch your pension. I think it's more advisable to study carefully your new business, put together a proper business plan, put together some projections, figure out with a fair amount of specificity how much you will need to fund the business, and then sit with a banker like Ryan to figure out how best to fund it. But I wouldn't be in a rush to touch my pension savings.
So Cartier, I agree wholeheartedly with Dylan. Pension funds are to be reserved for later years when you do retire. What that person ought to do is to consider having a discussion with Dylan to see how the return on that fund could be maximized. But in terms of the business, I'm not sure to what extent you are able to dissect the budget that was just presented. Now, in the Serve Jamaica program that was announced by the minister, there is at least $5 billion that will be committed to support small business. And it's broken down as follows: $2 billion as part of an equity fund, $1 billion to encourage businesses moving to a digital platform as we embrace a more digital society, and another $2 billion that will be earmarked for loan support. So what you have now is more opportunity where you can tap into equity funding from the Development Bank of Jamaica and through JN Bank, because we're an AFI, to be able to provide seed capital for your business going forward. Now, what the minister outlined is that that $2 billion is to be matched by the private sector to increase that $2 billion to $8 billion. So that's good news for a lot of businesses that are looking for that seed capital to be able to access funding. Now, once there's enough equity in the business, or you come to the table with equity, the bank is willing to lend up to 70% of whatever financing request that is required in maintaining that 70-30 equity loan financing ratio.
Thank you for that, Ryan. Thank you for elaborating there. Do we have any more questions? Maybe someone we could take live. I'm just checking to make sure. I think we've answered all the questions. Yes? Okay. All right. So we've elaborated, we've given our summaries, and I can say that Ryan and Dylan, you've expounded, elaborated, empowered ignited, inspired, so many adjectives that we could use to describe how fruitful this discussion has been. I'm going to now invite the Managing Director of JN Bank, Mr. Curtis Martin, to close this absolutely informative and necessary webinar. Mr. Curtis Martin.
Okay. Thank you, Cartier. Okay, I think after such an excellent seminar, I think I'm an anticlimax, and I'm not sure much more I can add. But I'd really like to thank you, Mrs. Cartier, for your excellent moderating of this seminar.
Thank you, Curtis.
And our very knowledgeable speaker made some very important point that we must carefully consider as individual investors and business owners that will, in the final analysis, affect how we recover as a single economy. There are some common themes, amongst the presenters. One was don't let a good crisis go to waste. Mm-hmm. So notwithstanding the tremendous volatility that we have seen in the economy, I mean, both locally and internationally, where we have seen major decline in GDP, we have seen major oscillation in the bond market and the equities market. These volatility have provided opportunities for us to actually get into stocks that we thought were too high before, or to get into businesses that were not viable before. So with respect to businesses, I mean, there's no time to retool. So, businesses that were, running a machine at 110% capacity, I did not have the time to take these machines, out of production. That they can actually do that right now. Businesses can look at their financial structure, so this is a good time to speak to Dylan, about, an IPO, to ensure that that you have a better financial structure. This is time now you can actually go into digitization, because one of the things that COVID has done is to drive the acceptance of digitization. The other thing is that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and especially, with this 1.9 trillion stimulus package in the USA, I mean, that definitely will drive economic recovery. That will drive a lot of remittances into Jamaica. We see, this budget with a $60 billion economic recovery program for Jamaica. So, the expectation is that we should see a pivot, and we should see some sign of economic recovery. And this is where we need to be cautious. And Ryan and Dylan spoke about, being cautious. So on the banking side, I recommend, that you speak to Ryan, and on the investment side, you speak to Dylan to ensure that you make the right investment decision. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending and for your feedback, your questions, comments, and your concerns raised this evening. Our teams are available to have even deeper one-on-one conversation of this with respect to this seminar. So please continue to send us your feedback, even outside of this webinar, at jnfmmarketing@jngroup.com, or even directly to me at cmartin@jnbank.com. A very big thank you to our hardworking team from both entities, led by Dolores Jones and Laurel White, who made this evening webinar possible. This is not the end, ladies and gentlemen. There are more conversations like this to come, and based on the questions and comments, there are many more things for us to uncover and discuss that will help you to further grow your businesses and your investments. But until our next webinar, thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Curtis. And, I feel so blessed. I know blessed is maybe not a word you'd use in the financial sector, but I think blessed is important and is poignant, because one of the things that I will remember from this seminar is that I must stay nimble and informed. I think if there's nothing else, stay informed, stay flexible. And as mentioned by even Ryan, that we are in a hopeful space. The vaccine is in Jamaica, and this is not the end of the tunnel. There is hope. And whilst everyone is worrying, get the information, connect with JN. You can make an appointment online, actually, www.jnfunds.com, and speak with an advisor. If you have questions, if you have a little bit of money, they can tell you how to multiply the money, enhance your wealth. And I believe at the base of this is that hope is the word that you should walk away with. There is hope right now. Get the information, unlock your potential, enhance your wealth, because who doesn't want to live well? I want to live well. I'm envisioning this 10,000 US, you know, I spoke it on this live, and I'm gonna hold on to that. And when I get that money, Dylan and Ryan, I'm coming to you, and JN will be my place to invest and divest my funds. It has been my absolute pleasure to host or be the moderator for this financial seminar. It was a meaningful discussion on how to unlock your potential and enhance your wealth. And don't forget, it's brought to you by JN Fund Managers and JN Bank. And if you pose a question that we did not answer, the team will be monitoring the chat room and social media to answer all your questions. Thank you so much, JN Fund Managers. Thank you, JN Bank, for being forward thinking and understanding that this is what we need in this economic climate. Thank you. Have a good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carter.
Yeah.